Hello and welcome to Dungeon Crawler Video. I'm Jack Jackal, and this week's tape is the subpar Stephen King adaptation called Graveyard Shift, starring Bradford Dourif in the spirit of Dourif December. I guess I should have said Stephen King's Graveyard Shift.
It does say that at the beginning of the movie, which probably just really grinds his gears.
I mean, he signed off on it.
Yeah, and then after the fact was like, yeah, that one sucked.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
Are we recording?
Yep.
Okay, it was bad. It was a bad movie. I do like the cover, though.
The cover's awesome.
Cover's sick. It's a little weird, though, because I don't think a single fucking person in the movie is actually wearing one of these light helmets.
The inspector is, and I think that's it.
The inspector? You mean Bradford Dourif?
No, he's the exterminator.
It would have been way cooler if they, did, a necrotized head with, Brad Dourif's dangly earring that he has. It's so sick.
He pulls it off.
He pulls it off, for sure. Anyway, I'm going to read this now. Ha! Stephen King...
Sorry.
Stephen King took you to the edge with The Shining and Pet Sematary. This time, he pushes you over. Okay. Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. From the horror master Stephen King comes his most terror-filled tale yet. Gates Falls, Maine. When an abandoned textile mill is reopened, several employees meet mysterious deaths. The link between the killings all occurred between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. The Graveyard Shift. The sadistic mill foreman has chosen a group to clean up the mill's rat-infested basement. But what the workers find is a subterranean maze of tunnels leading to the cemetery, and an unimaginable horror that comes alive in the dead of night.
Let's get into it.
I hate this movie. Hold on. This movie is to rats what Jaws is to sharks.
Worse.
I don't like this movie. I have been assured that they treated the rats nicely in the production of the movie, but rats are beautiful creatures and let them be.
It did make me want to go adopt 10 rats and have a rat room.
Yeah. Stop making all the rats covered in goo.
When a rat is thrown into the shredder, the effect is achieved by carrying a real rat to the machine and dropping it into a foam cushion box in front.
Don't hold a rat like that.
I know.
Don't hold a rat by its tail. I don't care if you were, humanely treating the rats. You're holding the rat by a tail for, a long time. It's not fucking happy.
Then a fake rat made of cotton with a plastic tail is covered with stage blood and used. When a rat runs from the exterminator spray, which is actually just plain water, it is responding to the sound of a clicker that signals where the rat chow is. When a soda can is thrown by a slingshot and hits a rat, the can actually hits an area in front of the rat, and the rat is pulled out of sight by its trainer off camera. The vacuum hose sucking up rats is sucking up fake rats. Scenes with the water hose were shot in cuts with real rats and then cutting to fake ones being hosed away. Whenever real rats are in water, trained swimming rats were used and closely monitored. Fake rats were used to portray all dead rats. And the gigantic mutant monster rat is, of course, a puppet. Thank God for that.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. That's great that they, made sure that everybody knows that they didn't treat rats poorly. But you still made a movie about how scared of rats you should be and how, every single person, including the heroes of the fucking movie, treat rats poorly.
But the story itself isn't even about rats.
Right. This is some guy's excuse to make you afraid of rats.
And also, all the rats could not be less menacing. They're so cute.
Right.
They all look just like they're what are we doing here? And
Well, title card's pretty cool.
The title card's awesome. That's in my notes. I wrote, Graveyard Shift logo dripping blood goes hard as hell.
Yeah.
Just hold your notes in front of you.
Yeah, I don't like that the pages are doing this. I was just recently discussing Stephen King's stories with a friend, and she said, it didn't seem like there was a point to it. For Stephen King stories, there does not have to be a point. He's just yo, what if this machine was evil as fuck? That's it. The original Graveyard Shift, the story itself.
It's what if there was a rat infestation and it turned out to be various mutated forms of rats taking over the subcellar?
Yeah, that's sick, though. Like, let him be.
There's
Leave him alone.
There's a bunch of different types of them.
Shout out to Lee Malone.
And also, yeah, great writer. Yeah. And then also, also in the story, all the different types of rats are really fucking cool, for one thing, and then the big beastie is disgusting sounding.
Yeah, whoever did the practical effects, great job polishing up a turd, because honestly, like, the practical effects in this were great. One thing that was bad in it, for a small town in Maine, just outside of Castle Rock, the accents were terrible. At first, I thought Warwick was German.
Exterminator's working round the clock. He's tired. Needs more time.
In all my notes, I call him not Fred Ward.
Yeah, he's not
from Tremors.
Yeah, not the guy from Tremors, but yeah. I thought he was the guy from Tremors.
Let's go sequentially. I don't want to jump around too much because I as the editor. My first note is I like that this guy talks to this rat and calls it Doris when it has visibly gigantic testicles.
Hello, Doris.
I did not notice the visibly gigantic testicles, actually. Here's the other thing. The sound in this movie is insane. But he like wipes up the rat piss, and there's like added, not making any sense, extra squelching noises.
There's constant added, not making any sense.
None of these sounds make sense.
Screaming with closed mouths.
Yeah.
Constant in this movie.
Alright.
So like starting from the beginning,
it's a guy in a fucking basement of a textile factory. He's just like feeding cotton into this machine, and there's rats everywhere. They just keep zooming in on different rat faces, and they're all watching him, and it feels very much like Willard, but worse. He sees that the rats are looking at him, and he doesn't like it, so he grabs one and puts it into the machine and watches it die, and he's like, see, that's what happens.
Okay, class is over.
How does he even get thrown into that fucking machine?
Because he starts getting madder at the rats, and he takes another rat to put in the thing, being like,
I'm just gonna have to make another example.
And then the beastie thingy.
But I'm not desperate enough to...
That's like the opening sequence of the movie, and then we start rolling like the opening credits, and we get the really cool animated title card. That is one of the best things about this movie, and it's in the first 5 minutes.
But then we go to the next best thing about this movie, which is straight to Brad Dourif.
Yeah. Part of the reason why this is part of Dourif December is because he genuinely, for such a bad movie, does such a good job. And we'll get to that later, because there's a certain point where I'm like, holy shit, he's acting his heart out right now, and it's so good. But he gets a special mention in the credits on the back of the movie. It says, and Brad Dourif as the Exterminator. Like, you need to know he's the Exterminator because he's that good.
Packs the most massive lip ever.
This is how you can tell Brad Dourif's never chewed tobacco before.
Ah! Damn!
Because he looks like one of the kids in The Sandlot who are chewing tobacco for the first time, and they just take the entire thing and just stick it in their mouths.
And he keeps taking drinks, like liquid drinks, with the lip in, which is really hard to do and keep it separate.
So now we're introduced to the Exterminator, and he's irrigating the rats out of the pipe system in this giant mill, which I don't really understand.
It makes no sense. It's just
it makes zero sense.
But there's a lot of rats.
They're trying to tell you, like, hey, this guy doesn't like rats, and it's his job to get rid of them. So then we're introduced to John Hall, who is walking into a bar filled with Maine townies, which I didn't even realize it gets warm enough to have that many sleeveless shirts in Maine, but here we are. He takes a little card from the bulletin board that's obviously just job postings for the local area. He pulls it off and walks right back out.
But not before everyone's like oddly very homophobic and shit to him.
You're wrong, Girl Scout.
I wrote, Andrew Divoff can get it though, even though he's one of the bullies.
The one with the long hair?
Yeah.
I knew you would.
He's on Lost, and I like him, actually, as an actor. So
he's good. I mean, no, he's not. I don't think he does a great job in this movie at all.
No, he sucks.
He's terrible.
He's just nice to look at for a second there.
So he walks off, he goes into the office at the mill and meets Mr. Warwick.
On in.
Not Fred Ward.
Not Fred Ward, who is played by Stephen Mocked. And this guy has the worst, almost Maine accent you've ever heard.
I genuinely didn't know that's what they were going for.
Right off the rip, he says "ayot," which is a very northeastern, very specifically Maine thing when it's said that way.
Yeah, that's a good story.
But like, then he just goes off into very strange attempts at a Maine accent.
Now, we don't do better than minimum to start.
He's the only person in the movie trying to do a Maine accent, though.
Yeah, but then, but there's like other guys that straight up have like Southern accents.
Yeah.
That are just not trying at all.
Anyway, so not Fred Ward is...
None of it makes sense.
Not Fred Ward is with the inspector looking at the building, and the whole scene seems like they're all dubbed over.
Oh God, this is bad.
Well, because I'm sure that the sets themselves were hazardous and hard to get sound right. So, like, overdubbing the sound makes sense, but...
First of all, it was filmed in the oldest woolen yarn mill in the United States, but also a few of the other mill scenes were staged near the Eastland Woolen Mill in Carina, Maine, which subsequently became a Superfund site, which means it's, like, extremely hazardous and toxic, and had to be, like, reclaimed ecologically. So, like...
So the inspector and Warwick are downstairs talking about how fucked up the building is, and they're also talking about how a guy died in there. He's like, yo, you gotta get this place cleaned up. He's like, yeah, I know, I'll get somebody on it. And he goes upstairs and...
Warwick has a punching bag in his office, and I thought that was funny.
I did not notice that at all. Warwick decides to hire John Hall in his office. He basically, like, illustrates what he's in for and that he just lost a guy doing the graveyard shift. So that's what John Hall will be doing. So now he's down in the same spot that we started the movie at. He's bored, he's hot, and he's sweaty, and he decides to just mess with the rats. And look, I get it. You don't want rats messing with your stuff or whatever, but throwing cans of soda at them is not nice.
Not throwing.
Oh yeah, he's using a slingshot.
With a can is the weirdest combination.
When's the last time you tried to load a can into a slingshot?
I never touched a slingshot in my life.
Oh, well, it's not super easy. Those, especially because I think they're empty cans.
Yeah, they are.
So they're not flying very well. Like, they're open, and you're flinging the open end.
It also...
So it's literally him being like, what? And the can, like, basically just goes off camera, and then somebody else hurls a can at a rat. And I hate it.
Also...
Let's get a hate counter.
It's also like, everyone in this movie acts so distressed by the rats when they're not doing...
Yeah, they're not doing
anything.
Like, they're literally like, hey, when's this guy gonna leave?
Yeah.
Like, they're just waiting
like,
for you to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I...
This was a rough watch. I was like, upset watching it.
Every time
I was annoyed.
there were not rats on the screen, I had a genuine sense of relief.
So... John Hall's flinging cans of Diet Coke at rats, which I already said.
Diet Pepsi.
John Hall is flinging cans of Diet Pepsi at rats, and Brad Dourif shows up, who we just saw working in the middle of the day, but he's like, yep, gotta work the graveyard shift, because that's when it's time to kill the rats. And it's like, I just saw you in, like, broad daylight, like, on top of a roof. Like, you just not sleep? Or what? Anyway.
He keeps odd hours.
You work late hours. I got no choice.
He starts talking about why he's such a good exterminator, which happens to go into this very, very brutal description of how the Viet Cong used to torture American soldiers with rats by, like, crucifying a man and then putting a rat into an open wound on his stomach and then, like, heating a rice bowl on top of the rat and, like, making it go. It was in Fast and the Furious, the first one. Actually, I feel like it was in a bunch of them. It was in the first, or maybe it was the second Fast and the Furious.
I don't know.
It was in Fast and the Furious. It was in one of them. Brad Dourif is describing this scene of, like, a crucified American soldier on Vietnamese land. And Dourif cries a single tear.
They'd make the cut just above the abdomen.
And it's so good. Like, he's already like sweaty and like just pale and wet all the time, but like he does such a good job that it makes me hate this movie just like a modicum less, because Dourif does such a good job of like being like, my brother's died over there. It's like the one tear comes down. But also, I mean, I'm not going to get into the politics of the Vietnamese conflict, but so Dourif gives this stunning monologue. He genuinely gives it his all, which I expect nothing less from him. He's such a good actor. And the guy's basically like, damn. Like, he doesn't really give much. This dude playing John Hall, like, does not give much in return. And Dourif's like, well, I'm gonna pack another dipper and get the fuck out of here. More rats to kill, I guess. He does this, like, weird dance where he sits on, like, 5 different things as he's doing the monologue, too. There's a bunch of parts where you can see if the directing wasn't as good as far as, like, the shots go, or the editing, rather. If the editing wasn't as good, you would have, like, seen their marks with, like, big masking tape on the ground. Like, they're like, move to this spot and say your line. And, like, so Dourif is obviously like, okay, I have to go here, and then I have to go here. But he's also acting the fuck out of that monologue. And it's so good. And I just want to make sure that you zoom in and get that tear going. Add a little sparkle to it as well. A bunch of the other workers are up on the next level up. One of them is doing a Warwick impression, but he's doing like this very animated face of just like, you better get back to work. And then Warwick shows up behind him and he does a million accents. He's maybe having a stroke.
Now we can get you that audition on Star Search.
We got commitments to our New York sales office due on Wednesday. Fetch me your work order, boy.
Also, sorry, buddy, but your posture is weird. He's got something, like, all of a sudden, like, he's like, eh?
And his
like,
pants
what?
look like they're up to his pecs.
Yeah, his pants are up there, but he's literally squeezing all of his guts, like, up into his ribcage and around. There's something weird going on there.
There's some shots from the back where you're like, what?
Yeah. I didn't understand the outfit choice. I didn't understand the acting.
The geometry of his body.
Yeah, because it changes. He's a shapeshifter and a voice shifter, apparently.
But literally, there's a part where I thought he was doing a Jamaican accent, because he was like,
This cleanup ain't gonna be pretty, darling.
what are you doing down there? And I was like, please don't do that.
Listen and moaning about the heat. And it's gonna get hotter.
Me take me one, take me on life.
Okay.
No! That's not even close to what I thought you were thinking.
Yes! Okay, so that guy's doing the whatever impression, and then he's like, you know what, you get to be the one who goes and sets the place up for the cleaning crew.
But he also like has like a little moment before he leaves where he is horny towards that one girl.
Jane Wisconski.
Warwick goes over to Jane and is kind of like, I'll treat you nice, why don't you come in here and teach me how to do a real Maine accent? And she's like, no, I'm good. I think I'm going to keep working with these guys. And it's fine. Don't worry about it. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Maybe you're going to go on the cleaning crew. I'm doing a better Maine accent than that motherfucker. This other dude pisses off Warwick, and Warwick is like, all right, fine. You go downstairs and you get this shit ready to be cleaned up. He goes down there, and it's a lot of chaos, and they're not trying to show you the entire creature. And at one point, like a big like bat wing comes and folds over this dude, and then you get like the like kind of thing. It's really fucking cool. And I don't know if that translated in the
It's the Freddy Krueger through the wall.
Yes.
Then we're back at the diner, and John Hall is eating alone.
One of the dudes that also works at the mill, because I'm pretty sure everybody works there, walks over with a plate with a napkin over it, and he's like, here you go, got you something. And he's like, God damn it, like, this sucks. And he pulls the little towel off, and there's a rat. And he just, like, moves it away, and people are just continuing to be rude to him. He's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna leave now. And he just, like, gets up and goes. and crop top girl Jane offers him a ride. Did I get that right?
Yep.
It's really not that interesting. The moment that John Hall's walking into the bar for the first time, Jane, crop top girl, and her other friend are walking out, and tall girl is like,
wouldn't mind having his boots resting under my bed.
One more pair of boots, you're gonna have to open a boot shop.
Jane is like, he's got a wedding ring on. I already saw it.
Anyways, married.
She's already looking. Also, the town's really small. Like, eventually you're just going to run out of boots to put under your bed. So they drive off, and Warwick is back there kind of watching them like, oh man, like I was trying to hit on that girl. But Jane's friend is like, hey, why don't we go back? Like, that's something that we've been doing. It's like established right there that those two are banging. And he's like, don't touch me like that in public. And he gets like kind of weird and like aggressive towards her for a second. She's like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, just don't come on to me in public like that. And then he goes, we'll talk about that. And he just like points at her crotch. And he's like, we'll talk about that later. And he like leaves. Oh, ramen.
Let's get a ramen counter.
I love ramen. What were we talking about?
Then we go back to John Hall and Jane.
Oh, and they're just like hanging out at his house or something?
I think they're still just talking in the car, but it's establishing that his wife is dead.
Ah, yes, yeah. She's giving him a ride back to the hotel or boarding house or whatever that he's staying in. And she's sort of just asking about where he's from, and he's talking about how he kind of moved from town to town and blah, blah, blah. And she brings up his wife because he has a visible wedding ring. And he's like, oh, my wife died. And she's like, oh, nice.
The line is literally, my wife's dead.
Yeah.
And he says that, and the girl's like,
My wife's dead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we're back to Fred Ward is in his office. And I wrote, not Fred Ward is acting like he's a group of rats in a human suit.
So he goes and does the interview with this new guy. He already dislikes John Hall. And so he works up a list of people that he's going to put on this cleaning crew, and he puts this dark-haired woman that he's sleeping with also on the list. She sees the list, and she's pissed. She grabs an axe from somewhere and starts beating the hell out of this dude's car. And the whole town, it looks like, comes out to see this happening. And he's upset. Warwick is upset. And he shoves her down and then is like grabbing her by the hair and maybe he chokes her. He's being very, very rough with her. That's when Warwick realizes that the entire town is like watching him do this, and he just like lets go of her. It's just like, everybody go about your business. Like he says,
He says, show's over.
Show's over.
He takes John Hall to his office to talk to him and give him the graveyard shift job, like to be like, you're in the cleaning crew.
I have an opportunity for you to make some extra money. Why don't you go into the deepest, darkest place in the entire town and clean up shit for a weekend?
4th of July weekend, double pay.
4th of July weekend, double pay.
But it's for double pay.
Thank you, Mr. Warwick.
He's like, all right, cool. And he takes a big, big bite out of an apple in the most aggressive way possible.
He like punches himself in the mouth with it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He had to like go to the dentist right after that. Yeah. It's like, fuck, I did it again.
I literally wrote, that hurt my gums. So we go back to the diner, and Crop Top Girl does a cool thing with a match to light cigarettes. Just some like, because they're strike anywhere matches.
Don't remember that at all.
It looked really cool, and she was like very confident about it, and it was fun.
So Jane does some stuff with matches to make the movie just a little more interesting.
But then they kick you right back down by having that man find that hair in his soup.
Yeah, what's that about?
No idea.
Like they go back to the diner and they're sort of just like, all right, well, I guess we got the graveyard shift coming up. And then Jane's like, do you want to get out of here, to John? He's like, yeah, let's do that. And then they just cut to a dude pulling hair out of his soup. And they don't explain it. I thought we were going to see like a rat coming out of there, but it was just somebody's hair. There are a couple scenes where you get to look at the mill, which sits in front of the graveyard. There's a couple times where they give you almost probably the same exact shot every time from the water running through the graveyard looking up at the mill. And it's like the coolest set. I would just like to see that as the end credits, if they could, instead of what they did, which was nothing.
So then we go to the scorned woman.
The scorned woman who already beat the shit out of this guy's car is now going through papers in his office, and she finds the deaths in there too, right? Like, that's like the main deal.
I think so.
She just finds a bunch of papers where she's going to try to make this guy suffer. But she doesn't really get to. Does she die?
Yes.
She gets
got.
She gets got by the bat.
Yeah.
Throat go bat.
So
that's when you see the throat. BigBatThroat.com is when you see that.
Only bat throat something.
Yeah, she gets sucked up into that moist gullet.
That gaping maw.
Yeah.
She's going downstairs. And the rats come out and start swarming her.
Yeah.
And then the big one comes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And she gets got. What's the girl version of a Wilhelm scream? Because that just happened.
I think she's one of the only characters that I saw on screen, other than Jane, who is not mean to rats. Although I think Jane is eventually mean to rats when she's underground. So, time for the cleanup crew. They're trying to find and inventory anything of value that's been in this basement for a really long time. They're also like spraying hoses and shit above this. So all the stuff on this floor is like wet and gross and disgusting and covered in rats. They find a roll top desk, and whatever that one dude's name is with the buzz cut, he sticks his entire arm into it because he can't get it open, and somehow doesn't feel that there's 20 rats crawling all over his arm. He gets the thing open and freaks out because he sees 1 million rats crawling all over his arm. And he grabs the hose and just obliterates like 20 rats with a hose.
They're two different guys. But Brogan is the one doing the hosing, because he's literally, the entire time that we've been in the basement so far, everyone's doing stuff, but he's just like, wah! And like shooting rats.
Yeah, I hate this guy.
And he's screaming constantly, but his mouth isn't open.
There's almost like a fight between Carmichael and the hose guy, and then they find the trapdoor.
But they don't go down the trapdoor.
They don't go down the trapdoor because they want to find Warwick and let him know about the trapdoor.
And then we get another Brad Dourif from Warwick scene.
And that's when we return back up to Warwick's office, where he is talking to Brad Dourif about extermination.
Brad Dourif intros Moxie.
Hey, Moxie, cut that out.
Who is
a rat terrier. Yeah. Brad Dourif's entire existence is geared towards finding and killing rats, so he has a rat terrier, and he's telling Warwick, like, hey, I'm really good at exterminating, and he's like, actually, you're not, because we're covered in rats. And he's like, well, you know, the owner doesn't really want to pay me what I want to actually, like, exterminate all the rats, so I do my best. And he's like, all right, well, I got more jobs for you. And he wants him to go, like, way down in the graveyard for some reason.
Yeah, like, he says that the source of them is they're coming from underground, and they're coming from the graveyard.
Right, and he also, there's, like, discussion of, like, well, whenever I flush out all the rats, they just go downriver to this other town. He's like, yeah, those people are getting tired, and they're, like, gonna sue you for it. And he's like, actually, no, they're gonna sue you and your boss, Warwick, because the owner told me to flush all these rats down here. And he's like, did you get that in writing? And Dourif's like, I guess not. And he's like, well, it's on you then.
You, like, don't like to stand on Severe, do what I say.
Right.
Okay, what is it you got me doing?
I'm still not sure if, like, Warwick, like, orchestrated what ends up happening to Dourif.
I don't think he does. I think he just sends him to, like, the shittiest other place possible to do stuff other than the subcellar, whatever.
But he doesn't get got by the rat. He gets got by, like, an entire coffin, which honestly, Dourif's death is pretty cool.
No, it sucks.
Nah, it's the slidey, nasty gore that happens, like,
okay,
in the moonlight.
It sucks that
I wanted it to be a more epic death than just like, I kind of got squished.
Yeah. It sucks that first, it's heavily implied that his dog dies, which sucks. And it just is ridiculous that of all the characters in this movie, he does not die of a vermin-related death. like that's like the person that should get killed by rats.
Yeah.
It just sucks that he dies literally out of nowhere.
But you expect him to die by giant mutant rat and not by coffin.
Or by a rat crawling into his stomach cavity.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
he described. Yeah. Anyway, I wrote, how does Dourif just die like that? Now there's a half hour left of this shit show without him.
And to be fair, like, after Dourif dies, it is, like, exceedingly more exciting and, like, fast-paced. Because they know that they can't keep any of these other actors on screen for more than, like, 30 seconds without them looking bad. So, Warwick makes his way down to the basement and sees that they all found a trapdoor. He opens it up, and he's like, all right, somebody go down there. And since it was John Hall's find, he's like, John, you better get down there. And he's like, well, I'm not going alone. Why don't you come? You're the boss. I don't want to be accused of stealing whatever's down there. And Jane says she's going to go too, and then it turns into a group affair where, like, he's like, all right, I guess we're all going down there. So they all go down there. It's cavernous, it's wet, it's disgusting. There's, like, bubbling water coming up through the ground. There's all kinds of gross stuff. And obviously there's rats. They start hearing stuff, and they decide to turn back. And one of them goes up the stairs, and we get a really, really slow-mo head smashing through the stairs scene, where this guy either misses a step or the step breaks beneath him, and then his head goes through the stair above him. The stairs just collapse, and he goes into a big puddle of bubbling water, where then we see, like, the big rat tail and stuff, like, moving around, and then he keeps coming up, and he's, like, got, like...
He's bleeding an insane amount.
He's bleeding so much, but it's, like, not running off him the way blood would
It's
when
gelatinous.
you're covered in water. Yeah, he's got jelly on him. And it's, like, stuck to his head in ways that, like, if you had blood running anywhere out of your skull, you would just be, like, pink and not, like, have it, like, painted on that way.
Also, the amount of blood in the water immediately when he hits it from falling from the stairs is, like, more than Jaws with chum in the water.
Yeah,
There's, like,
yeah,
it was so much.
Yeah.
Before any of this, you missed where they first go down and they call him, like, a bug light or something, because Brogan turns around and has an entire spider's nest and just, like...
Shoot, Brogan, you're a regular bug light.
Yeah.
And it's so clear that they, like, dressed this man that way. And we're like, now turn around, and then he just had to be like... like...
Yeah. Anybody who signed on to make this movie in the first place was... like, this is the reason we made this movie, so we make a monster movie. For the rest of the movie, everything's gross. Then everybody's like, oh shit, we can't get up. We have to go find our way out a different way. Nobody's agreeing on which way to go. So John and Jane go off in their own direction, and the new hire, long hair, and crew cut Warwick go and find, like, bottles.
Yes.
He has this, like, whole thing where he's like, they're gonna, if they're not with us, they're against us. And he, like, freaks out and just covers his face in, like, soot and dust, which is...
from the outside of a wet bottle.
Yeah.
Anyway, foreshadowing, I wrote the note, if these two kiss at any point down here, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind.
Yeah, and I did. I texted you. Yeah, I was just like, you cannot be kissing right now. Like,
it was enough for me that when they were level up, she had a sandwich in her bare hand.
Oh.
And, like, it had bites out of it. I was like, come on.
Yeah. Like, if you're working in this place at all, I wouldn't be putting my fucking hands anywhere near my mouth.
We haven't gotten there yet, though.
Yeah, but goddamn.
Okay, first they fall or something, and then a coffin floats by, and they're like, oh, and they grab it.
Yeah, so they get in the water and a coffin's floating by, so they're like, all right, cool, we're going to use this to float in the water. At this point, I was, like, sort of just like, what are we doing here, guys? Can we, like, I'm checking the time on the movie, like...
I did that too.
They hear the river running, so the three guys start walking up towards that, and there is a hole in the wall. And he's like, wait, I think I can see water or something. Like, let me see if I can feel it. And he puts his entire arm in there.
In a dark hole, yet again.
Yeah. And then something starts pulling him and just, like, ripping his arm off. And the other guy that's there is just like, what is it, Carmichael?
He's like,
he's being eaten by presumably the same thing that ate the other guy earlier in the big puddle of bubbling water.
And neither of them try to help him.
Yeah, they just scream.
And then he comes out.
Ask him what it is.
Yeah, and then he comes out, and it's a cool effects part because his jerky arm flings some meat.
I don't even remember how he dies.
There's like literally 15 seconds of them just being like, and him being like, help me, and nothing's touching
and they're
him. And they're like, later, yeah. And then he gets yoinked.
Yeah.
And then Longhair freaks out, and he falls into like a trapdoor, but it only goes up to like his waist, if that. It's quite shallow.
Okay.
He could absolutely push his little arms and get himself out. But it just reminds me of Little John in Men in Tights, where he's like,
I'm drowning! I'm drowning!
Yeah.
And is just screaming his head off about, like, I can't do this anymore.
How does he get got?
I
remember this. This is not good enough for me to pay attention to. Warwick is like, all right, I'm done trying to save you. And then Longhair gets got.
We go back to John and Crop Top, and something happens where like a corpse falls at them and the corpse screams. Like it's a skeleton, but it goes like, like has a sound effect.
John and Jane are under the graveyard. That's where they got the coffin from. You're kind of putting it together that the big rat thing and all the other rats are eating people down here, and that's just a bone collection. And honestly, looks really cool.
Yeah.
And then that's when Warwick shows up.
We get a very full creature reveal of the bat, because it comes at Warwick.
And you get some wings, you get big rat tail, you get weird rat bat head, and some extra body parts, and a couple claws and stuff like that. Yeah.
His Batty Coda claws on the wings.
Batty Coda's good.
Thank you. Then he falls a great distance.
That fall would have killed him.
Because he falls onto a pile of bones.
Yeah. You'd have like bone shards sticking out of you if you fell that way. Now they're all in the same room together. It's Warwick, John, and Jane. What?
Before that, they...
Oh, God, there's more that I'm missing.
They don't meet up yet, because he falls and then is like, ugh. And then John and Jane, like, they keep going and they're going to find him. He's like, we're gonna get out of here. And she's like, I know. And it's the fastest, just like it's not passionate. It's not
because it's dirty.
But even so, in the movie, but it's so such gross. A like nothing.
It's disgusting.
Anyway, and then they find Warwick.
And then they meet up with Warwick in the big fucking room full of bones. I love a cave with weird bubbling water. Like, it's like sizzling. I think that's such a cool thing that has zero explanation to me. And it's very funny. Anyway. I think that they're implying that he has PTSD from Vietnam and he's just lost it completely. And now he's like, well, I'm going to kill you both to get out of here. I think he punches out Jane.
Yeah, we're 4 for 4 with movies where a lady gets punched. So
Warwick and John start going at it. There's like one point where Warwick gets like hurled across the room from like a backhand. Jane wakes up. Warwick and John are wrestling on the ground near a big puddle, and Jane comes up behind Warwick. It doesn't really work, and then he just guts her. John Hall's like, no! And also just like, what the fuck? And Warwick's like, he just like, he's out. He's gone. I'm out of here.
But okay, Warwick, chill. We get it. You were in the shit.
Yeah, because then he's like back running through the cave, and he's like,
and like not like army crawling through shit, and you're
with
like
the knife in his hand.
He puts it in his mouth even at one point, and then like slams into a wall and is like, ugh. You're like, okay, dude.
Yeah, the bat gets him then, right?
Yeah, I put 10 out of 10 slime on that big mama rat bat beastie.
Jesus Christ!
I love an independently puppeted face.
Yeah, the bat face was awesome.
Its ears and its nose were doing things.
Yeah, that was cool. They really put their money into it.
So he gets got, more screaming with no open mouth.
And so that's when John Hall decides to get out. So he climbs up the bone pile with a flashlight.
Yeah.
And finds one of Brad Dourif's old water hoses. He gets out. The mutant rat bat comes after him up the shaft.
Mm-hmm.
The shaft, from where you see him climbing in this thing, the shaft is fucking gigantic. And this bat thing, like, crawls up it, and rather than coming up through the shaft hole, it just, like, busts through the wall.
Yeah.
it bursts its head through the wall, and you're like, there's a hole right there. Like, there's a door right there. Why'd you do that?
It's like, I know the better way.
Because of that, it gets, like, weirdly trapped. And then I think its tail gets stuck in the machine somehow. Like, it's not very clear. Rather than explain to you how the bat gets stuck, they just give you a whole bunch of screaming and rat and bat noises and just like weird shots of the thing struggling.
Yeah.
And but you do end up seeing that the rat bat tail is caught in the not moving machine. So this is when John Hall uses his skills as a diet Pepsi. Can we even do this?
Yeah.
I've never drank a Pepsi in my life.
With 500 views per video, I'm pretty sure we're fine.
Anyway, that's when John Hall uses his empty can flinging skills, which I still am not convinced an empty can from a slingshot is really going to push one of those industrial grade machine buttons. Because, like,
it takes at least 5 pounds of pressure to push one of those buttons.
But again, we've made it this far. So he has his slingshot somehow. There are still empty cans of Diet Pepsi around. He slings one.
Sure.
At the button, it misses. And he's like, damn. And then he does one more and it works.
But, like, they show a slow-mo of it arcing through the air just to show...
Not good.
And it's like, that does not prove the point.
Yeah, it's not good.
Because it'd be like, dunk. Like,
yeah, so the machine turns on and it pulls the big rat bat into the thing. And the machine gets stuck, like, right as the rat bat's head is about to go into, like, the little mangling mechanism. And so it's just, like, a fucked up, like, monster head, like, sticking out of it. And that looks pretty cool.
it also, they did too many back and forth shots showing it getting dragged in.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there were, like, 3 of it being like, it's like, you got it.
Yeah.
So then, the ending...
So literally, like, the next thing you see is a way too fast shot of a sign that just says under new management, under the Bachman Mill, and it disappears, like, before you can even read it.
It's, like, less than 2 seconds.
Yeah. Under new management. And then, like, fade to black, and they play this insane song that is so much better than the entire fucking movie.
So hard, so juicy.
Damn!
The graveyard shift.
The entire movie doesn't compare to this song that they made out of audio clips from the movie.
It's so good.
It's so good. You could have had the swinging sign play during the entirety of the credits, or you could have had that wicked cool shot of the mill.
Whole thing with the graveyard.
Yeah. The bone pile, like, you could have just shown us the sets, like that really cool Instagram account, Scoobyscapes. The set design in this movie was one of the best things, one of the most redeeming things about the entire movie. The set design was wonderful. Brad Dourif was wonderful. The practical effects were very good. They were very fun. The song during the end credits was really fun. Not much else. I guess something that I really like, presumably the rats kind of won.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Like, again, I don't know.
They lost their big beastie mommy, but...
Yeah, but was that their mommy? I don't want to say mommy again.
So in the short story, the large one that's like the size of a cow or whatever is supposed to be like the mother rat because her sole purpose is breeding other rats, and she doesn't have legs. She just is like a blob of breeding in the basement. That's what it is.
Hey, blobofbreeding.com.
That's something.
Yeah, that's something, and it's not something that you should look at.
Anyway, kind of a bummer.
Sorry, Stephen King.
Sorry to this man.
Yeah.
He didn't like it either. It's fine. What's the bone rating?
2.
Really? I'm shocked. Because of Dourif?
Yeah.
And the creature work?
Dourif and the creature work it's worth seeing once if you like those things. I would love to just see like a photo book of just the sets and like behind the scenes stuff, because that stuff was really cool.
There's actually really beautiful photos on IMDb that are black and white. I, while watching it, was thinking that I should redo an edit that has as little rats as possible, and it's mostly just the big beastie rat, because I would repetitively watch the movie then. If there was a lot less of the little rats.
This movie would be better if you stopped showing so many rats and you just showed Brad Dourif chasing after them, not knowing where they were.
Yes.
Like if you never saw the rats and Dourif's just there, like, trying to flush them out, and he does flush a couple out, and he's like, yeah, I'm getting them, and then, like, he also hates them, and he tells his whole story. I would watch him just sit in a chair and talk about his character's experience in Vietnam for like an hour.
Also, it wouldn't fundamentally change anything if he was just chasing the rats and they continually.
What was I doing with my hands like that?
I don't know. You're fine. If stop. If the story was that he was just chasing the rats further underground, that improves it.
I'm changing my rating down to 1.5 bones.
A bone is worth a watch.
A bone is worth a watch. The parts that were actually worth the watch were the set design and the creature design. The extra little bit is the exterminator.
I love his little outfit and his little slick back hair.
I liked his little earring.
Oh, I said, yet again, I wish there was more Dourif in this. I love this gorgeous little freak so much. That's all. He's beautiful in this movie. There's a shot where his side profile is, and it's so, like, delicate. Like, I whatever. Do you have any final thoughts?
No.
Show's over.